This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian. I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
Look, some of us are lazy, alright?
If by lazy you mean wrong.
Prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide whether the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because guess what? This film is lit. Magical creatures, treacherous monarchs, Father Christmas, and a talking lion Jesus, all beyond the door of a dusty armoire. It's the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and this film is lit. Welcome back to This Film is Lit. This is our, 10th episode, I think. Ninth episode.
Ninth, yes.
Yes, ninth episode. Ninth feature, main episode. And that's right, we're talking about Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Probably our biggest book to date, maybe. At least most popular.
Book, yeah.
Most popular book to date. Maybe not movie-wise.
No, not
but
movie.
Before eventually one day we'll hit Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and all that other good stuff, and that will blow it all away. But for now... Or if we ever do any like big classic or classical lit, you know. So
yeah.
There's probably like a 1984 movie, isn't there? At least a one or two, I would think. I know there's a Brave New World movie. I saw that randomly.
Is there?
Yeah, I watched some of it. It was interesting. After I read it last year, I remember seeing it on YouTube. I think it was like a BBC special. Anyway, way up. None of that matters. So yes, the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is one that I have not read before. So we get to play all of our games, probably.
Yeah, I read all of these growing up. I don't remember some of them very well. Not all of them are great.
Yeah. There are the 6 or 7 of them, or how many are there?
There's 7.
Okay. 7 of them. I knew it was around in that ballpark. So, and I had seen the movie once fully in theaters when it came out in 2005.
Yeah, I think I saw it in theaters too, and I'm pretty sure that was the only time before the other day that I watched it all the way through.
Like we talked about in the prequel episode that we've seen it, see bits and pieces of it now and then on TV and that sort of thing, but I have not watched it since 2005. So yeah, it was interesting. It was all right. it was all right.
Yeah, it's a fine movie.
Yeah, it's all right. It's not great, but it's fine. But let's just get right into it and jump right in to Guess Who. Boy, there's a lot of this one's gonna be tough, I feel like, because there's a lot of
no, I'm about to lob you some real softballs.
Oh, okay, thank goodness.
Because there are character descriptions, but I think it should be pretty obvious who they are.
Well, I was worried because there's not a lot, but there's a fair number compared to some of the other things we've done where it's like kind of obvious, or, there's not that many to choose from. I felt like there was. All right.
He had a red woolen muffler round his neck, and his skin was rather reddish too. Yeah. He had a strange but pleasant little face, with a short pointed beard and curly hair, and out of the hair there stuck 2 horns, one on each side of his forehead.
Just keeps getting easier.
One of his hands, as I have said, held the umbrella, and the other arm he carried several brown paper parcels.
Is that okay? Well, let's see. I wonder. It's Tumnus.
Yeah, it's Tumnus. I even skipped the part where they talk about his goat legs.
I mean, it was still very... well, and his red scarf is particularly,
that's his
character defining, so...
The scarf and the umbrella are, beyond his being a fawn, they're
and the horns
identifying.
And the goatee, which was all obvious, but as soon as you said scarf, I knew who it was, and then it just got easier from there, so... All right, 1 for 1.
She was covered in white fur up to her throat, and held a long, straight, golden wand in her right hand, and wore a golden crown on her head. Her face was white, not merely pale, but white like snow or paper or icing sugar, except for her very red mouth. It was a beautiful face in other respects, but proud and cold and stern.
Well, 1, they cast the right person based on that description. 2, you were not joking about softballs. 3, that would be the Ice Queen, or the Queen, or what? Not the Ice Queen, but the Queen.
The White Witch?
Sorry, the Witch. Sorry, the White Witch. Did she not say she's Queen of Narnia?
She calls herself the Queen.
Yeah.
But she's not the Queen.
Right, I know she's not. Sorry. The White Witch. The Ice Queen. Whatever.
Yes.
Yes, that her. Tilda Swinton. Which was a perfect casting based on that description. 2 for 2. Oh, this couldn't be easier, honestly.
He was dressed in polar bear's fur, and on his head he wore a red hood with a long gold tassel hanging down from its point. His huge beard covered his knees and served him instead of a rug.
I mean, I'm just going to go on a limb and say this. Ye olde Santa Claus, Father Christmas.
You are wrong.
What?
You are wrong, sir.
That was a curveball. You did that on purpose. That's shenanigans. Wait, hold on. Give me a second. A professor?
No.
Oh, okay. Then I don't. I'm blanking.
It's the dwarf that rides around with the queen.
Oh, yeah. Which in this movie is played by the guy who plays all of the Oompa Loompas in the Johnny Depp version of Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, and especially the first time you see him when he's out on the sleigh, he's wearing, which would be when the description was, he's got the furs. That's true. But that was tricksy.
I'll make up for it.
Okay.
He was a huge man in a bright red robe, bright as holly berries, with a hood that had fur inside it and a great white beard that fell like a foamy waterfall over his chest.
That little dude that rides around the sleigh. No, it's Father Christmas.
Yeah, that one's Father Christmas.
3 for 4 is not too bad.
Yeah.
But if you would have read that one first, I probably would have. You did it well. Like I said, very tricksy. If you would have read that one before the other one, I probably would have got all 4 of them right. But considering how easy they were in general, that's fair enough. 3 for 4. We gotta go back and figure out where I'm at, and then write it down so we can keep track.
I know.
I knew, and then we didn't do it for a couple episodes, and I completely forgot what my.
We should get a big chalkboard.
Yes,
and keep a tally.
I like that. Or we'll get a dry erase marker and just write it on the window here. Anyways,
Let all of our neighbors wonder what that means.
What is that? What are they? Guess who? Do they play competitive Guess Who? Like keeping track of how many times Brian wins? I don't know. Whatever. That's weird. Time to move on. So was that in the book? Was that in the book? I didn't have any of these initially for a long time. I had like one, and then they kind of hit hot and heavy towards the end, which is what I thought might happen. When I was like starting to like halfway through the movie, I'm like, I still don't have. I feel like all of this was probably in the book. Part of that was because I knew the book was relatively short. Yeah, not short, but it's
less than 200 pages.
Relatively short children's book, and this is a 2.5 hour long movie. I'm like. What everything must be in the book. They must have used all of it because they made a 2.5 hour long movie out of it. But there were a couple things that eventually I thought maybe not. All right, first one. Does the White Witch freeze people into stone or ice or whatever they are?
Yes, she does.
She does.
Yes,
and
she turns people to stone.
Does she do it to Tumnus?
Yes, she does.
Okay, well, I thought something about that was very like. I mean, it makes sense because, as we talked about in the prequel episode, the mixing of mythologies, it was very Greek, Roman, Greek,
Medusa,
Medusa, and so I was like, maybe they wanted, maybe she just, I don't know. I was thinking that maybe they wanted a way in the movie, and now I know that the book is probably not too far from the movie, but I thought maybe if they were going to change something, it might be something like that where they can just magic unfreeze everybody at the end, everybody's fine. You know what I mean? I don't know. I wasn't sure, so that was. Interesting. That makes sense. Doesn't surprise me too much that was actually in the book. But second one, did they get the weapons from Father Christmas?
yes, they do.
See, this is the thing. With almost all of these, I had a feeling almost all of these would probably be in the book because, like, I was like, what couldn't be in the book? It's all got to be there. I bet they didn't. It's probably a pretty faithful adaptation, other than little things here and there. So they do get the weapons from Father Christmas. Mm-hmm. Is it the same?
Yes.
Like Susan gets a bow.
Susan gets a bow. Lucy gets a dagger.
Peter
gets a sword.
And then Ed's not there because he's a cock.
Basically, yeah.
Which we'll talk about. This, I feel pretty confident, was, if not, may or may not have been in the book, was at least greatly expanded upon, which is the final battle.
It is in the book, but you're right, it is expanded on.
Yeah, because they needed a big climactic action scene.
Whereas in the movie, we see almost the whole battle.
Yeah.
Because it kind of jumps...
Our upstairs neighbors are wrestling, just as a heads up.
It kind of jumps between the battle and Aslan and the girls and what they're doing. In the book, we stay with Aslan and the girls until they arrive at the battle. So we see the end of it.
Okay, so it does happen.
It does happen,
It's not really described what's going on. We're with the girls. That makes sense. That's kind of what I figured, is that they kind of pulled more from that so they could... we could have an epic battle. All right, last one. And this is my favorite one, and I'm really interested to hear the answer to this. Do the cheetahs fight? Are there cheetahs that fight for the good side, and like tigers, white tigers or whatever, that fight for the bad side? Is that in the book?
I know there's at least one cheetah.
Does this fight for good?
Yes.
Wow. Are there any recollection of other beasts?
I mean, there are all kinds of different animals.
Well, I mean, the wool, it would make sense because the wolves we know,
right?
Or I assume that's in the book at least.
Yeah.
So then, follow-up question: how do you? And this isn't really a real question. It says, how do you think C.S. Lewis decided? Yeah, cheetahs, they're good. White tigers, evil.
Well, I think at least some of it is pulled from like folklore.
Yeah.
Because, like, the wolves, that makes sense. Because, like, when you encounter a wolf in a fairy tale, it's a bad guy. It's almost always evil, yeah. Others, personal bias, maybe.
I just thought that was interesting.
He really liked cheetahs. Yeah. I don't know.
It was just when we were watching that final fight, it was very interesting to me. I'm like, all these cheetahs are charging on the good side, and then it pans over, and there's, like, white tigers and, like, polar bears. And like, how did we decide this? Follow up on the polar bears. And this could be, I don't know if you know this, and if you don't, then we can just talk about it later. Maybe this is an episode down the road, because there is a movie. Was the guy who wrote The Golden Compass...
Philip Pullman.
Yeah. Was he, like, trolling C.S. Lewis when he made a polar bear? Like, does she use polar bears in the book? The Queen, the White Witch. Does she, like, ride around with polar bears in the book? Because if not, then none of this makes sense. So...
I don't think so.
Okay, well then never mind. Because, in the final battle, she rides up, in the movie, she rides up in a chariot pulled by polar bears. I didn't know if that was in the book or not, or like referenced in the book. Because if though, I thought it might be interesting because I have never seen The Golden Compass, but from what I remember of it, like one of the main good guys is like an armored polar bear. Yes. And so I thought maybe that was... Because... the only thing I know about his Dark Materials is that it's sort of like the secular counterpoint to Chronicles of Narnia.
It's very anti-organized religion. Yeah. Although, I don't know... Well, if it's anti-organized religion, there's a good chance that Philip Pullman was responding to C.S. Lewis, at least in some way.
That was what I figured, but I didn't know.
I don't know about the polar bears specifically, although I think, because the main girl in that book, the little girl, she rides on the polar bear, which I think is probably a reference to East of the Sun, West of the Moon,
I don't know what that is.
Which is a Nordic fairy tale.
Oh, okay.
But we can talk about that when we hit...
Eventually we'll do, because I am actually really, really want to watch The Golden Compass. I've heard really interesting, and I mean, it got really pretty not very good reviews, but I've heard some things from people I like saying that they actually quite liked it, so I'd be interested to see, and I do want to read those books at some point, because I'm a giant heathen, so. All right, that's all I got, unless you had any other points you wanted to touch on what we're discussing the cheetahs and whatnot, but that was all I had for, was that in the book?
I just can't imagine what a cheetah would be doing in a battle. Like,
They tackle all the tigers, if you notice in the movie. But
they're not, like, they're small. They're not fighters. They're sprinters.
They sprint and run down gazelle or whatever. They're not brawlers.
Yeah.
No. Well, and that's what happens, though. In the movie, they're sprinting, and then they tackle all of the tigers or whatever that are... But as soon as they grab them, they would probably get their ass kicked by a tiger, I feel like. Because cheetahs don't have the big fuck you claws, right? No, not like lions and tigers and stuff.
Yeah, cheetah claws aren't retractable.
No.
They operate kind of like cleats.
They're more like
soccer
dog's
cleats,
claws, aren't they, than like a lot of the other big cats that have like,
Yeah, they use them for traction.
And big cats use them for disemboweling their prey, which I'm sure cheetahs might be able to do. I don't know. Well, that's why I put them on the good side, underdogs,
Versus
a white tiger, I'm picking the white tiger probably versus a cheetah. I mean, not in a race, but like in a battle.
And they don't use their claws for disemboweling, so they must be noble.
Yes,
and
that's
good,
true.
Right?
They are more noble. It's time to move on to Lost in adaptation. First one, and I assume I know the answer to this. I'm just clarifying because they never really addressed it in the movie. Why does their mother not come with them to the countryside? Is it because my guess was because she had to work still, or for money or something? I don't know.
That was the way it worked when they sent. I think they sent kids to the countryside during the Second World War when London was being having the heck bombed out of it every night.
Blitz and whatnot.
Yeah. But I don't think they sent adults away.
Well, I guess my question is, why wouldn't she go with them? Because in order to, like, I get sending children to the countryside, but like, it just seems like unless she had something to do in the city, why she also would not just go with them.
Well, from what I know of it, it was like a government sponsored program.
Oh, okay.
So they had like people who lived out in the country who volunteered to take in kids and like opened their homes to them, but I don't know that they would have done that for adults.
Yeah.
Keep calm and carry on and all that.
Right. I guess, okay, that makes sense, because I did actually wonder at one point I thought it was the professor not their uncle or something.
No,
it's just a guy.
It's just a guy who
Interesting. Okay.
Opened up his home.
Because that was something I wasn't. I mean, they call him a professor, but I wasn't sure if like maybe he was somehow related, and Okay, interesting. Speaking of the bombing, that bomb shelter did not seem remotely sturdy enough to
probably not.
That door on the bomb shelter is just a little wooden, like, there's not like, and it's not even like they like went way underground.
I know.
I know that's what bomb shelters were like. I know it's probably realistic. It's just like, man, I guess it's better than being in your house, but it still didn't seem, if a bomb landed on that, I feel like he'd be dead, but maybe not. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny because like he's and they're having that whole conversation and he just has the door open. I'm like, shut the door. Like, you guys, what if a bomb lands in your yard? All right. Second one. Is there any more backstory on why Edmund is such a cock? Or is it just because, and my guess was because, like, middle child syndrome?
Yeah, actually the movie has way more, like, backstory on this, I think.
Really?
Because the movie kind of teases at him being, like, upset that his dad is away at the war.
Yeah.
When he runs back in at the beginning to get the picture, and there's like all of the references to the older kids having to take on more of a parental role, which the younger kids resent, or at least he does. Lucy doesn't seem to resent it. Lucy doesn't care.
She's young enough.
Yeah, she's young enough. I mean, in the book, he's kind of a little bit of a bully.
Yeah.
And he's just a jerk in general. But they never really give much of a reason for it beyond he's a kid.
Yeah, I figured there probably wasn't, just based on the length of the book, that they couldn't have gotten into too much, like, of their life
No, they really
going to Narnia. But, like, it was just like, man, he's such a fucking dick. Like, he's such a dickhead, like, all the time.
There's one in every family.
Yeah, no, there is. And so, like, it's not like I needed more explanation. Like, I can just buy that, yes, he's the kid who's kind of a dick. And, a little bit of the middle child thing. So I got it. I was just like, I was just wondering if there was anything else.
He's a little bit of a bully. He butts heads with Peter because he's his older brother. Yeah. He torments Lucy because she's his younger sister.
Yeah. Right. No, it makes sense. Like I said, it all made sense. I was just wondering if there was anything else to it. Third, and this is jumping way ahead from where we were. Is there any more backstory in the book as to why? Because the queen or the witch at one point says that if somebody isn't sacrificed, like Narnia's screwed. She says that at one point in the movie. She says, like, she shows up and says, we have to sacrifice Peter, Edmund, or whatever, whoever, Edmund or Peter, I don't know, whichever one it is. And she goes, we have to sacrifice him, or else, like, you know that if we don't, like, I don't know, they're never imply, like, necessarily what's going to happen, but, like, the Narnia's going to end, or something bad's going to happen, or something. And because they all seem to, like, understand this as true. That this is, like, even all the people on the good side seem to be like, yeah, we'll have to sacrifice somebody. And then, so Aslan, says, take me instead of Edmund or whatever. I'm just wondering if there's any more in the book as to what the rules are, why they need a sacrifice, what would happen if they don't sacrifice somebody. I
mean, there's not all that much more of an explanation. Yeah. In the book, they mention the Emperor. They call him the Emperor, who, like, created Narnia and put the magic into it, which, applying the Christian mythology to it, I read as God. Yeah. If Aslan is Jesus and the White Witch is more or less a stand-in for the devil. Kind of.
The Antichrist, maybe. Well, not really.
Although, what's interesting, they don't mention this in the movie, I don't think, but in the book, she's called out as a descendant of Lilith, Adam's first wife.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's mentioned in the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, Lilith, according to stories, becomes like a demon. Right. So.
But yeah, so there's nothing beyond, but it's funny because they don't mention in the movie the Emperor or whatever you said. Right. That's never mentioned.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about later because I kind of have some notes about that whole angle of it.
Right. So reading it as this kind of religious stand-in allegory. I don't even know a better word for it.
You don't, because there probably isn't. There probably is.
Yeah. If I read it like that, then to me, the idea is that similar to how in the Bible, humanity is cursed by the first sins of Adam and Eve.
Right. Eve specifically, get it right. It's women's fault.
We can talk about that another day.
I'm just saying.
But because humanity is cursed with original sin, they are subject to, going down to hell, eternal damnation.
All the bad stuff.
Right, all the bad stuff. So if I read the White Witch as kind of a stand-in for the devil and that kind of sort of character-ish, then she would have rights to someone like Edmund, a traitor.
Right.
Traitor, the ninth circle of hell, the worst circle.
Right. Which, I mean, that's not
biblical, but... I mean, sure.
Dante, but sure.
Bring it all in.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis would have read that.
Yeah, he would have been all over. He would have been all about Dante, I'm sure.
So, to me, it's kind of C.S. Lewis's way of writing in, this is God's rule, the Emperor's rule, right? That Edmund, a traitor, is going to need to belong to her unless Aslan/Jesus steps in and sacrifices himself.
Right. Which we'll get to, because I had some notes about... Anyways, we'll get there when we get into some more general discussion about the movie, but that's... It might get a little controversial, but we'll see. All right, so this is my last one. In the movie, we don't really get any sort of frame of reference for how long they are in Narnia. I mean, obviously, by the end, they've been there for 30 years or whatever, or 20 years or whatever. But, I mean, prior to the battle, we don't really know how long they've been there. And the reason I'm wondering is because, was it long enough for them to learn how to sword fight and shit?
Okay. So... they're not there for very long, or at least we don't really see any time pass in the book, much like is what happens in the movie.
Yeah. It seems like they're there for a few weeks, basically, before the battle happens. Maybe, if that.
In the book, Peter knows how to use the sword. Here's where I think the movie went wrong.
Okay.
They showed him, like, being unsure of how to use it. And then all of a sudden, he knows how to use it.
So in the book, he just
knows how to use it.
Because that would make sense if, like, just magic, he can use a sword. Like, when he gets to Narnia. Or if somehow he knew before that.
Well, here's the thing, is that it's the 40s.
Yeah, fencing.
And he lives in England. I find it completely feasible that he would have learned some fencing in school.
Yeah, that's not completely unbelievable. That's true.
And you know,
all would have taken with
since the book doesn't ever show him not knowing how to use it, you just buy it.
You just assume, he knows how to use a sword.
But because the movie made that mistake of showing him like being unsure with it and not knowing what to do,
he just kind of holds it and points
holding it weird. If they had showed him just using it, we would have bought it.
Yeah, I would have been like, all right, fine, I guess he knows how to use a sword. Or even if I didn't assume like, he took fencing or whatever, I would just assume like, which fencing and broadsword fighting are, I mean, that's a little different, but sure, fair enough. You would have some sort of martial training,
some sort of
combat,
some sort at least some sort of understanding of how to hold it and how to move it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of depends. But there are lots of different types of fencing. He could have been taking saber fencing, which would make more sense. But I think you're right. But even if we didn't assume that, I think I still would have been on board if I just like assumed as some sort of like vague like. When he got to Narnia as a son of Adam or whatever, he just sort of becomes imbued with, you know what I mean? Like he's just like being there, kind of like, oh, like and like even if like in that first scene he like started using it, and then this is a different thing of like, oh, I know how to use a sword. Like that's weird. Like no, I think you could do it either way. I think you even have to, like you said, do it like the book. Just you can just use a sword, and you're like, all right, I'm sure, fine, whatever. But they never really touch on any sort of background and it's very interesting in the movie because it's like they train. There's like not a montage, but there's like
there's
a scene
a
where
very
like,
short training scene.
And it's like, oh, so they learned how to like use their weapons in like a few days, enough to go into battle with them. All right, cool. Well, that's all I got for Lost in Adaptation. I think that means it's time to move on to your segments, starting with Better in the Book.
This is a really faithful adaptation.
I had a feeling watching it. It felt faithful.
There are little changes. There's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily notice if you hadn't read the book.
Yeah.
They never break a window in the professor's house.
I was wondering that. I was actually almost wrote that down for that in the book, if that the reason they ended up in the thing was because they were hiding. I almost wrote that down.
The reason in the book, the reason is that they're hiding from the housekeeper, but it's because she's bringing a tour of people through the house, because it's like an old historic house. So she's bringing like a touring group through, and they're like, "Oh shit, gotta hide because she'll yell at us."
Right.
They don't break a window.
Okay.
So there's little things that they added, little changes that they made, but this is one of those rare adaptations where it feels like you're watching the book on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I even having never read the book, I could feel that kind of. It just seemed like this is probably pretty much what this book is like, other than little things like the battle at the end.
I did not remember that this movie was almost 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's like 2:25.
But thinking about it, I understand why it is. Yeah, actually, because the story itself, like it's a faithful adaptation, and the story itself is pretty spare.
Yeah.
So there's not really anything that you can cut without losing crucial plot elements.
No, that's fair.
But at the same time, there are things that you have to add to make it feel like a movie, like backstory and tension between the siblings and longer action scenes.
Yeah.
So instead of being able to take things out, all they could do was add.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it was such a short book. It's like you really can pretty much almost get all of, what's in the book into a film. When you make a 2.5 hour film, I mean, in screenwriting, generally a page of a script is a minute of screen time, give or take, depends on what you're doing. But in general, that is the rule when you're writing a screenplay, is that a page of script is a page of screen time. or a minute of screen time. And so, if you think a page of script, 2 hours and 20 minutes is what, 145 pages of script, shooting script, probably around 150 pages or something. And the book is 100.
It's 180.
And now the formatting's different. It's not all text, but it's similar, and because you can also shortcut a lot of stuff in a script. When they're setting up, you can describe the thing. You don't have to write out all the descriptions.
Yeah, and there is a lot of description.
Yeah, so you don't have to write all the descriptions quite as in depth because you do that later in stages through the art direction and all that sort of stuff. You just go, okay, it's this set, and you describe it a little bit. But so it makes sense that a 190-page book or whatever turned into a 150-page screenplay. Everything is there. That kind of makes sense.
There are a couple little things that I didn't particularly care for in the movie.
Okay.
The handshake joke with Lucy and Mr. Tumnus where she offers to shake his hand and he says, doesn't know what's a handshake? That's played out.
Yeah.
Stop making that joke. Yeah. I don't like it.
Well, it is now, but was it in 2005?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
On a similar note, I don't think the movies sold the friendship between Lucy and Tumnus enough.
They don't get I agree with that. You don't get, it's very quickly, I know what you're saying, because I felt there was a moment where he so desperately is so upset about betraying her, immediately, and I'm like, you've known each other for 5 minutes. I don't know, I agree that their relationship wasn't as, it didn't grab me the way that, like a good example of a good portrayal of a book relationship that should be very central and very pivotal and very important that works in a movie is Hagrid and Harry in the Harry Potter series. Yeah. And we're pretty much immediately in the first movie, throughout the course of the first movie, you get and see it, and you don't get that same feeling, with this, where it was like, it didn't feel quite so heartwarming, their relationship.
Yeah. And the moment where Aslan appears in the fire while he's playing,
was that what that was?
Flute,
I didn't even know what that was.
I'm pretty sure it was the lion.
Yeah,
so I assume it was Aslan.
Right.
That's not in the book.
That scene was weird. I didn't get it.
And I did not like that because in the book he does start to play the music, and then almost immediately he's like, "No, I can't do this. I can't do this," because he really is a good faun.
Right.
And I feel like having Aslan pop up in the fire or whatever, that undermines his character growth or whatever, character development.
Yeah.
Not a fan. I wasn't a huge fan of all the tension between the siblings.
Yeah, there was even more than just Edmund. There was quite a bit.
I get it, but it felt in excess. To me.
To me it didn't, but to me it felt pretty reasonable-ish for 4 siblings, roughly. That age.
No, I agree that it's reasonable. And I think it does lend itself well to character development. Yeah. But it was just kind of,
is there any particular moments that you're thinking of that stuck out to you that was like,
it was mostly the tension between Peter and Edmund that really grated at me.
Interesting. So it's not as much so in the book? Because that seems kind of pivotal to the whole storyline of him being a traitor and whatnot. Is sort of their rivalry.
No, the thing where Peter and Susan kind of have to take on a more parental type of role is there. Yeah. But it's not as emphasized, and you can tell that Edmund resents it. But again, it's not a major point. Maybe it's just because it's not so emphasized in the book that it was, I don't know.
Well, actually, sorry, not to cut you off, but I guess I did notice a little bit, because one of my things was, why is Edmund such a cock? So, that felt very played up in the sense that Edmund being so, Edmund, right? Yeah. Edmund, being so, just fucking obnoxious. So I did feel that, and it made me wonder why, and so the fact that not only is there no explanation in the book, but that it's not even played up in the manner that it is.
No, it's not played up in the same way. And maybe they felt like they had to explain a little bit why he would sell out his family.
And that makes sense.
Maybe Like, to me, it makes perfect sense that a little kid being a dick to his siblings would just do that.
Yeah.
But maybe they felt like they had to give it more of a push for the movie to sell it to audiences.
Well, I think that makes sense, because we had to dislike Edmund more.
Yeah. Mrs. Beaver is supposed to have, like, adorable little spectacles.
She doesn't have glasses. That's weird. Why would you not put that? Maybe it was, like, way more expensive. Like, maybe the animation. It would have been so cute.
Maybe
it was, like, really tough to animate or something.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
She's supposed to have, like little round beaver-sized spectacles on her little beaver face.
Maybe that's why that joke when they draw him on that...
No, that's in the book.
Oh, is it? Okay, never mind. It was funny because we were watching the movie. I completely blanked out. Maybe I was in the bath. I ran to the bathroom once in the movie. Maybe it was during that, because it's a 2.5 hour long movie. But maybe it was during that scene where they drew the glasses on, because I was like, we got to the end of the movie and there's that, what is it?
It's a lion.
A lion, like, and it's got glasses drawn on it. I'm like, and like the camera directed, like, very directly cuts to it, and it's like, haha, look. And I'm like, what? What is the joke here? What am I missing? And they were like, no, they drew those on earlier. And I was like, oh, okay. I missed that.
Yeah, that's in the book. It really is a faithful adaptation.
No, yeah, apparently. Because that totally seems like a movie thing they would add, like a little gag.
So, I'm not sure if I can, like, back this up with any real evidence.
Well, then don't bring that shit in here. Slap it down.
But I feel like the movie is weirdly kind of preachier than the book.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, the religious elements are there in the book, but for me, I never felt like I was being, like, preached to.
Yeah.
But there are a couple points in the movie where Aslan starts talking, and I'm like, are you trying to sell me something, movie?
You know, it's hilarious that you say that, because one of my notes, like the last note I wrote when we were watching the film was, the religious symbolism in this movie is honestly more subtle than most Ridley Scott films. In a C.S. Lewis movie about a lion that is literally, figuratively, Jesus, and the religious symbolism is way more subtle than any Ridley Scott film I've ever seen, where he's pushing that angle. Which is most of them. Which is most of Ridley Scott films, other than, like, Alien.
Oh, I'm sure we could make that one religious if we tried.
I'm sure, too.
So that's all I have for
Better in the Book.
Better in the Book, which is really just a list of things I didn't like in the movie. So,
there you go.
So here's my list of things I did like about the movie.
Time for Better in the Movie.
So the book starts out with them already at the professor's house.
Yeah, I think I knew that.
And I like that the movie starts a little bit before, and we get to see them, like, at home.
See the actual blitz.
See the blitz, and see them traveling to the professor's house. The World War II aspect is way more emphasized in the movie than it is in the book. I mean, they never really even talk about why they're there.
Oh, really?
In the book. Huh. Which it makes sense for the time period that he wrote it. Yeah, people would have known.
Just get it. They would just get what was going on.
But I enjoyed that.
In the book, do they discuss or talk about the fact that their dad is in the war? Is that mentioned at all?
I don't. They mentioned their father once or twice, but never, like, they don't really talk about it.
That's interesting, because that's it's a very clear,
like, point of
part of a initial character development of both Edmund and Peter mainly, but all of them, but mainly the two boys.
I liked the fox character.
The fox wasn't in the book?
There is a fox in the book, but it's not the same.
Oh, okay.
Like, it doesn't play out the same way.
That fox can take a beating.
I know.
Movie. It's ripped, grabbed, and thrown around by wolves all over the place.
I liked that little fox.
Yeah, you're a big fox fan, so.
Yeah. The scene where Edmund meets Tumnus in prison in the White Witch's castle is not in the book. And I thought that was a good bit of character development for Edmund.
Yeah.
I thought it was a stronger piece of character development than what's in the book. I also thought that the frozen glass of water that they give him when he's in prison, that was a nice touch. Yeah.
Good little joke. Good little joke.
I have a lot of general discussion.
Yeah, I have some general notes. We can move on to that. We're going to get into a little bit of a general discussion about the film. Probably going to get a little contentious and a little religious, so prepare yourself.
First thing, Liam Neeson is fine. I like Liam Neeson. But I think if Disney really loved us, they would have cast James Earl Jones as Aslan.
He would have been better. He really would have
If Disney really loved us, that's what they would have done.
Liam Neeson is quite good in it. It's a very good role. I mean, it's very clearly Liam Neeson. Like, there's never been a more like, hey, that's Liam Neeson. Like, it's one of those voices... Which is funny, because he doesn't do a lot of just voice stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, because he has such a distinct voice. You know, there's movies when you watch animated films where you're like, oh, who is that? Mm-hmm. You know, you hear him and you're like, I know that voice. Like, it happens all the time when I watch, like, you know, Pixar movies and stuff. And then you're like, that's who it is, and you think of it. With that, it's like, that's Liam Neeson. Like, that is just Liam Neeson. But it's funny, he doesn't do a lot of voice
I wonder if maybe he was a fan of the books.
Probably, yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he did that, and he was like, I want that to be my animated voice. I am Lion Jesus.
I mean, when you get to be Lion Jesus.
You get to be Lion Jesus, where's there to go from there? All downhill. I have a note that says, goddamn, there are a lot of fur coats in that wardrobe. Because when they were going through that wardrobe, it was like a mile and a half of fur coats. It's like, why are there so many fur coats in that wardrobe? But that's magic, because when they see it without that, it's like 2. Yeah. And then the wall's there. But yeah, I thought that was funny. And then my other initial movie note, most unrealistic thing about this movie, an 8-year-old girl likes sardines.
She's British.
She is British, so it makes sense. And in the 40s, so I get, like, you know, if any 8-year-old girl's going to like sardines, it's an 8-year-old British girl in the 40s. But still, seemed a little strange. She was like, what was sardines?
During war rationing.
That's
too.
True. That
so she might have not had sardines.
Sardines are probably a treat.
Long,
yeah. It makes sense.
Like, go get my weekly ration of sardines.
It makes sense. I just thought it was funny because I'm like, no little kids these days like sardines at all.
I don't think any kids would like Turkish delight these days either.
I really, you found a recipe. I really want to try it because it looks so weird.
I know. It's it's like a jelly.
I know,
candy,
but it also looks very. It's supposed to be, isn't it supposed? And when he's eating it, it looks very soft. Yeah, like when you look at it. It looks like it would be very chewy and like, you know, like taffy or something, or like whatchamacallit, those little awful candies in the yellow box, like jujubes. That's what it looks like. But then when he's eating it, and from what I've read after when I was watching the movie, I was Googling Turkish delight, and it's supposed to be very soft and light, which I was like, what? How does that happen? So I really want to make it and see what it's like.
I would like to make it. If we make it, I think we should like Facebook Live.
Yeah, we should post it. Yeah, that would be fun.
Trying
cooking
it,
with This Film Is Lit,
and then we'll taste it and we'll see if it's worth selling out your family for.
Yeah, or if Edmund's just a cock. Spoilers: it's probably going to be mediocre.
I don't know what kind of candy they had back then.
No, I don't know.
You know,
probably chocolate. Yeah, shitty chocolate, shitty war chocolate.
I can think of like a million things I would have asked for before Turkish Delight.
Yeah, so. Right? It's interesting. I don't know. Tilda Swinton's performance reminds me a lot of Lena Headey's Cersei. In the early, or not later, in the early scene. The first scene when she's pretending to
be nice. Yeah.
That reminded me so much of Cersei. Yeah, the first scene with Edmund when he gets on the cart. I was like, man, Lena Headey was channeling that performance. A little bit, like little elements of it, just the, you know, that sort of two-faced, passive aggression. Oh, it's Professor Slughorn. That's really what I have. So the professor...
It's Professor Slughorn.
And in my head, my canon, my fanfic, is that that
fanon?
professor... What?
Fanon?
Sure, my fanon. Oh my goodness, that's... yep. My headcanon, that's the right word for it.
It is.
Yeah. My headcanon is that the professor, since he's a wizard, he got a hold of and Slughorn, if anybody would know somebody with a philosopher's stone, it might be Slughorn, because,
it's true.
Likes to befriend all those really smart people. He probably was friends with
He's a little bit of a morally gray character.
Yeah, and he was probably friends with Flamel, so he got himself some of that some of that philosopher's juice. And so it's him. It's the same character in Harry Potter come circa 1998 or whenever the books take place.
I could buy that.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
All the magic and stuff,
yeah.
Kind of works. But anyways, yeah, the Professor Slughorn, the actor who plays Professor Slughorn plays the professor in this. And I was like, you didn't even realize that you didn't recognize him at first.
No, I didn't
and
recognize
I was like,
him.
Listen to the voice. Like, he looks similar but different, but listen to the voice. That is very clearly Slughorn. And then my follow-up note to that, which is, that's right, it's Britain. Everybody is in everything.
Yeah.
Every actor is in everything because, spoilers, Father Christmas is Lord Commander Mormont from Game of Thrones, which was even stranger to me than because what's his name's in everything. The guy that plays Slughorn, he's in all kinds of stuff. But I don't think I've ever seen the guy who plays Commander Mormont, I don't know how to say it. It's like Geor. He's Jorah's father. I don't think I'd ever seen him in anything else. And I'm like, why is he Santa Claus? What is happening? Like, it was so strange. Very weird to me.
He's just out handing out weapons to children,
Makes sense,
the usual thing.
The Night Watch, the Lord Commanders of the Night Watch would just he basically does hand out weapons to children. Kind of his job. Headcanon. Lord Commander Mormont didn't die. He got stabbed. They all thought he died. Stayed north of the wall. Went a little further north of the wall. Became Father Christmas.
I like that one too.
Yep. Handing out weapons. Well, how great would it have been if the sword he gave Peter was Jon Snow has it, so it doesn't really make sense. But his sword, that would be pretty good.
This movie won an Oscar for makeup.
Yeah,
I think he told us.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and I get it, but also Tilda Swinton's hair.
It's funny you say that because I was like, this makeup. I don't get why it won or not. Like,
well, what was it up against?
I don't know. That's the thing. I didn't look what it was up against, so maybe there wasn't. But like, I guess I got what they were going for with Tumnus, and it was very subtle. But it was almost too subtle. Like it was subtle, bordering on. It just looks like a guy with weird ears. Like, I mean, like he didn't, and he had kind of a strange nose. Like I felt like they could have pushed him a little more goat.
Yeah, no, and they definitely could have.
You know what I mean? It really. I mean, I don't know what they were drawing on from the book, or if there were old illustrations that they were. I don't know. I'm just. I thought, like, in particular, Tumnus just felt very... And there's something to be said about a very good, well-executed, subtle makeup that sort of alludes to the forms of goat that we're looking for. But I don't know, it just didn't hit me in a way that really blew my mind.
I mean, it's a kid's movie. It could be that they were trying not to scare any children.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair, too. They want it to be very...
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you think about the fawn in... Pan's Labyrinth came out just a year later. The fawn in Pan's Labyrinth is pretty scary.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty scary.
He is pretty scary. And I didn't need to go that far with it. I was actually about to Google and see if they came out the same year, because I was just thinking, you know what? If Pan's Labyrinth came out the same year and lost to this, I disagree. And now Pan's Labyrinth better have won for Best Makeup. I don't know if it did. I'm assuming it did. I'm just going to assume the world is just... But, which is probably a mistake.
You should assume nothing.
This is probably a mistake, but,
Okay. Oscars 2006.
Oh,
it was up against, Cinderella Man and Star Wars Episode 3.
Okay. Just those two? They only had 3 nominated?
That's all that's listed on here.
Yeah, I can see that. Because Cinderella Man would have been, it's a boxing movie. So it was a Russell Crowe boxing movie. It would have been like
injury makeup
and that sort of thing.
And then,
okay, just by the by, Pan's Labyrinth did in fact win for best makeup. It also won for best achievement in art direction and cinematography. It won 3 Oscars. So, and was nominated for 3 more. It was nominated for best writing, best music, and best foreign language.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about Pan's Labyrinth right now because it's not based on a book, so
yeah, we won't get to talk about it. Cannot recommend that film.
I love that movie.
Great film.
But Tilda Swinton's hair,
yes,
is real questionable.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's like, is it supposed to be white person dreadlocks? Is it supposed to be braids?
I don't know.
What is it?
Yeah, it is kind of like dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's like strange. Weird. And then like in the last battle, she has it like all pulled up in a point over her head.
It's weird.
Like, what are we going for here? In the book, they don't describe what her hair looks like, but there are little ink-line illustrations in the book, and they show her having like long dark hair.
Really?
So, yeah.
My biggest problem with this movie, and it was the same thing I felt, and I tried not to let it bother me this time. Because I knew it was my biggest problem the first time I watched it, and it's still the same problem I have now, is everything is too clean and sound-stagey, and everything... I guess because they were shooting in... I don't know where they shot. I assume in Europe. So much of this movie is on sound stages and in front of green screens. And, and one, it doesn't hold up, but two, it just really hurts. There's also lots of really nice actual on location, in hillsides and mountains and forests and that sort of thing. But like a lot of it is like very sound stagey and clean, and it just really hurts it takes away the weight and the authenticity and the way it feels. And now it's hard not to compare this to Lord of the Rings. And it's just hard not to, especially with when it came out. And for me at the time when I saw it, that was the reason I really disliked it, was because I was like, Lord of the Rings felt so real. Now there are scenes, especially in like Return of the King, that are obviously very green screen, very CGI heavy in the war, the War of Minas Tirith and that sort of thing, that feel, and they haven't aged as well. But like so much of this, like in that final battle, it's all so bright and shiny and clean, and all their armor is just like, it's like cartoon armor. And like, now I get it's a kid's book, and so it kind of works. Like I get what they're going for, I think, but it just, to me as a general viewer, if I wasn't a little kid, like if I was a little kid, it wouldn't make any difference to me. I would just be like, cool, fun, war, fight, battle, cool. But watching it as an informed viewer, and not even now, when I saw it when I was 15 years old or whatever, or, 17 years old, I was like, it all looks so fake.
Yeah.
Like it just all looks, ugh.
I think it was hurt by Lord of the Rings having come out first.
Yeah.
Because it definitely doesn't achieve the same things, like costume-wise or cinematography-wise or world-building-wise.
Yeah, no, not even close. And that's the problem.
Which is a shame, because if you read the books, like, Narnia is a pretty cool place.
No,
it's not Middle Earth mythology
it's not that deep.
Level. But it's pretty neat, Well,
and that comes through, and I wanted to like it more. Like, I liked a lot about it, but everything, it's just, I kept, every time I wanted to like it more and get more into it, I would be pulled back a little by just how fake everything looks.
Yeah.
And how, like, it just all has this weird sheen over it. Kind of almost like some parts of the Hobbit movies. To an extent. Now, they don't do, they're still better in the sense that a lot of their makeup, or in the costumes and the props, feel very real and weighty, and they're aged, and it's the number one thing. And now maybe there's a reason they did this, but that was my biggest problem with the battle scene, is that all their armor, every armor that everybody's wearing, looks like it was made yesterday, which just feels so. It's so. I mean, I in my spare time, one of my things, I like making props. I like making stuff. And one of the best things, and we do a lot of we do some cosplaying and making costumes and for Halloween and stuff. And one of the easiest, quickest things you can do to make a prop or a toy or anything go from, this looks like a plastic thing that I bought at the dollar store, to that looks like a 400-year-old pirate gun, is make it look dirty.
Yeah.
Not even real dirty, just a little dirty. And all of a sudden, it looks
completely
a million
times
different.
better.
It looks completely different. And it's just everything in this movie needed a layer of, not a lot, just a layer of like dirt rubbed on it and then wiped off.
Yeah. I don't know a ton about how CGI works.
I don't know much more than you, but maybe a little.
But what I'm going to say, a lot of the armor was on, like, creatures.
Yes.
It's on, like, animals and centaurs,
Right.
and so I'm wondering, like, is that a way that they tried to cut corners?
Maybe, but that wasn't my problem. My problem, because that I could look past, because you don't really get a good enough sight. My problem was all of the real people, like Peter's armor, and all of the characters that were real characters, whether they were in makeup, like his centaur buddy and all that stuff. Was speaking of him, why do we care about him? I don't know. He doesn't. They share a very meaningful moment before the battle.
I wonder if there was a deleted scene.
There must be a deleted scene where they had like a bonding moment, because I'm like, well, do you even know each other? He's like, I will die for you. And I'm like, why? I mean, like, I get that.
He's the prophesied
king.
King.
The prophesied one, prophesized one, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, it wasn't so much all the CG stuff. It was it was like whenever time you saw Peter with his sword or shield and his armor, it just like, and I guess it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be dirty because he just got it, and not just him, but like, even, I don't know, it just all felt so fake. It all looks like plastic,
no,
like
I get
makeup,
it.
like
we're
play acting.
I agree.
I don't know.
It's not. It's a fun movie, but it's not a piece of art the way that something like Lord of the Rings is. Yeah. And I wonder if that's part of the reason why this franchise didn't take off.
Yeah. Well, and part of it is because they were, I mean, like it or not, and even as different as what the kind of the vibe they're going for, they were directly competing with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And now they started after the last Lord of the Rings ended, so they weren't, I mean, I say they weren't directly competing, like, box office-wise, because Lord of the Rings was done in, like, 2003 or 2004, and the first one of these came out in 2005. But they were competing in the public consciousness and in stealing our hearts and making us want to care about this, people who didn't read the book.
Yeah. Well, and Lord of the Rings had just done high fantasy adaptation really, really well.
As good as anybody's ever done.
Yeah.
Like, as good as it gets. Probably.
And they had to match that.
Yeah.
And they couldn't.
Yeah. But it's still pretty good. Like, that's the thing. It's just something about it. It just couldn't. I wanted to buy in, but I couldn't. And it was, a lot of it for me was just how fake everything. And just not lived in and not real. Like, I felt like Narnia felt like, so they go through the wardrobe to this place, but I want that place, so it could have literally just started existing as soon as they walked to the wardrobe, as far as we know, in terms of the story. But that's not what happened, and for me to want to really care about that place and care about what happens to it, it needs to feel like a real place to me.
Yeah,
like filled with real characters and with real weight to it. And when you don't have that, and a lot of that is the art direction and the set design and the props and all that, it just. Buy in.
There's very little character to the way that they depict Narnia.
Yeah.
Whereas when you watch Lord of the Rings, even without all the characters and everything, just by looking around, you can see the history of that world.
Yeah. And Middle-earth lives and breathes in those movies. Like,
I mean, Middle-earth, when we come into it, it's almost post-apocalyptic looking.
It's very post.
It's post the Golden Age.
Yeah. It's on the downside. Well, this is the Third Age.
Yeah.
It's the Third Age within the lore of the Lord of the Rings. There's the First Age, and then I believe the Second Age ended when the ring was lost. I think I could be wrong. Tolkien scholars hit me up, but I think it was right around the time the ring was lost. The Second Age ended and the Third Age started, like with that battle. Like when Sauron was defeated was when the Second Age ended, I think. And so this is the Third Age. So there's already been 20,000, I don't even know how long, thousands of years of history But you feel all thousands of years of that history, and with I'm going on and on just saying the same thing, but it's just frustrating because I wanted to like it the same way. It doesn't feel lived in. It doesn't feel like it has a history. Like I said, there's very little character to the way that they depict it. Yeah. And Narnia does have a history. Most of the books in the series are actually set, well, not most of them, but some of them are actually set before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe happens. Yeah. And there is a history to it. We just don't get to see that in the movie because of the way they decided to shoot it and that's
have it look.
It's all just so shiny and clean and bright, and it just... I guess they were making it like, it's a fun kids movie, but it could have been that and still been, because, and not to go too long on this, which we already have, but like if you compare it to like Harry Potter, which is still, especially even those first couple movies, are like the first two movies that Chris Columbus did are fun, bright, fun kids movies, but the world still feels real and lived in, and you, it has the weight of the history of it, which this just doesn't.
I have a hot take.
Hot take.
Aslan is actually more powerful than Jesus.
Why?
Well, first of all, he's a lion.
Ba-boom!
Jesus is just a dude.
Got
him. Secondly, it takes Jesus 3 days to come back from the 3 days.
3 whole days.
To come back from the dead. How long does it take Aslan? Less than a night.
And from the time he disappears to comes back is like 10 seconds. Which I believe the tomb was empty for at least a day, I think, right? It's been a while since I've read the Bible, but I did read it once a long time ago. But my hot take, in the same vein, I had a whole thing about it here regarding Aslan, is that I wrote, it's funny you mentioned that, because this is actually a better version of the Jesus story.
I know, it really is.
Than the Bible, which makes sense because C.S. Lewis sat there, read the Bible, goes, I'm going to do this better. Make some good little better propaganda. I can do the Bible better. C.S. Lewis said, I'm going to do the Bible, #better.
Oh, that's an Oxford Lit professor for you.
Yeah. And he did. I mean, like, not the Bible better, but the story of Jesus. Because in this world, and now without getting, I don't know enough about the thing that I like about it, and the thing that makes more sense to me, is that we have no reason in the movie. We have no reason to believe that Aslan is in any way responsible, or there's no allusion to the fact that Aslan is the emperor or is somehow one and the same of the emperor, or that the emperor has manifested in physical form in Aslan. So we have no reason to think that. Because one little theology here. One of the biggest problems of the Jesus story, in my opinion, is the idea that God, creator, all-powerful, being on high, created all these rules, the world, the universe, everything, and then in order to fulfill rules that he created, had to manifest physically and sacrifice himself, assuming Jesus is Lord God, to himself.
Right.
For rules he created.
Judeo-Christian mythology makes about as much sense as any other mythology.
No, it does. This is very true. I don't disagree in that regard. I'm just saying, that was always a big problem I had with the Jesus story. I was like, wait, so if he is... And now I know there's, nuanced theology that can, kind of try to poke hole. But, like, ultimately, when you boil it right down, Jesus is God. God sacrificed himself to himself because of rules he made, ultimately. And man, sin, free will, blah, blah. We can have that discussion another day. But in this one, there's no allusion to the fact that that's the case. It's just that Aslan makes a purely, as just a guy, or like a lion, not a guy, but as a lion, makes a purely selfless...
self-sacrificing.
And sacrifices himself in order to, to spare this kid, basically. It's like, that is a much more, to me, a giant heathen, that is a much more, much nicer, and makes way more sense, and is way less like, wait, what? Like, it's just a much more satisfying story and narrative than the Bible happens to be, which makes sense. And C.S. Lewis was like, hey, I can do this. Show this to your kids. This makes sense, kind of. You know, like, I get it. Like, I get it. I don't know.
So a thought that I had while we're talking about Aslan during the movie is that if it wasn't for, like, the sacrificing himself and rising again bit, he would also be, like, a feasible stand-in for King Richard Lionheart.
Yeah, which would make sense.
With, like, British mythology. Yeah. You know, good king who's been away for a long time, and in his stead a false monarch has usurped the throne and wreaked havoc on the citizenry. Yeah. So British.
Yeah, so very British.
You're so British, C.S. Lewis.
Hashtag so British. Isn't that a thing in Community where they're like that? No, so Brita. Brita, when you Brita something else. Yeah, never mind. It's a little different. But
during the battle, when the birds and the griffins are dropping rocks on the other army, it was similar looking to the opening when the planes are coming down, the Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, that was neat. I did notice that,
Which then kind of disappointed me, because I was thinking, like, you know what would have made a lot of sense? At the beginning of the movie, when they're getting on the train, they tease at the idea of Peter wanting to, like, join the war effort. Yeah. And be a soldier. Like, he's, like, looking over at the soldiers. If they had showed him, like, reading books about, like, battle tactics and stuff like that, and, like, having a vested interest in that, it would have made the battle scenes in Narnia way more convincing.
Yeah, no, it would have. That would have been neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would have made sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That would have been cool. So here's a fun thing I wrote. Hey, it's the gift scene from Fellowship. Then I did some quick Googling. Oh shit, did J.R.R. Tolkien rip this off and put it, because Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe came out like 5 years before Fellowship of the Ring.
Wait, which scene?
The scene where Father Christmas gives the presents to the kids. That is like exactly the scene when Galadriel gives the light of whatever, the even star, and the hair and the daggers or whatever. She gives them a bunch of stuff when they leave Lothlorien. Not Lothlorien. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah, Lothlorien, whatever. One of the two. Or one of those woods. One of those ancient woods.
One of those elven places.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like the same scene. Oh, there's a little more build up and it makes a little more sense in Lord of the Rings. But it's not just Santa just doesn't show up and go, ha, there you go.
But it does make sense, because Santa showing up means that the White Witch's power is breaking. Because it's always winter and never Christmas.
Yes, and Christmas has come. No, it does make sense. Sorry. It's very sudden. And you know, like, it does make sense. It's just like, whoop, Santa's here. Oh, we got sword. Cool. All right, let's go.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, in the book, they also have, like, a meal with Santa. He, like, brings them like a British tea and breakfast. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Nice. Speaking of the sword that Peter gets, and this is like one of my last notes, it would take such an insane amount of strength, and I'm sure this is just in the movie, but to drive that sword as far as he does into that hunk of ice when they ride, he drives that thing like 3 feet into the ice, and I'm like, buddy. You would have to have like a sledgehammer and like coom to get that thing. There's like no % chance you were.
That scene is not in the book.
No, I'm sure. I knew it wasn't. I was like, I'm sure that's all added for the movie, which I didn't put that in. But I did think that was at least expanded upon for the movie. Yeah, it's like you could not. If you look in the movie, that sword is way down in that ice. I'm like, no way, nah, not happening.
I don't have any more notes.
I don't either. Oh, just one more. I was like, oh, that's right. Liam Neeson is in this movie. Liam
Neeson.
I don't know. I have a particular set of skills. Oh, Jesus. Just one skill, really. just one skill. The Son of God. I will find you, and I will sacrifice myself for all humanity. Time for the final verdict. So, Katie.
Okay.
Which one is better? I know where this is going. It's fine.
So, this is a really faithful adaptation.
Right.
Like I said. And it's not every day that you get to watch a book on screen. Like I said. But I have to go with the book.
Yeah. Makes sense.
The movie is fun.
Yeah.
The book is nostalgia in page form.
Yeah.
And I know I'm saying this as someone who read the books as a kid.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit more to it than that. If you read them, the style of the Narnia books is very gentle and matter of fact. It's a kind of style that was really common in children's literature in that age. So even though it's an adventure story, the writing style kind of almost makes it feel like it's a slice of life story. And in my opinion, that style is a big part of what makes it feel nostalgic. And I think that it would feel that way regardless of whether or not you read it as a kid, like because of that older style. So like to me, the book is basically the literary equivalent of like grandma's home-baked cookies. Yeah. And there's something really special about that a film adaptation just can't capture. Yeah. Especially one that looks squeaky clean and characterless.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, all of the faults I have with the movie could not possibly be present in the book. They just couldn't, on principle of why the problems I have with the film, it's not a problem that could be in the book. I mean, I guess it could if there was like a lack of description or something. But like that's, the fact that it all looks so clean and fake and not lived in and lacks the weight and the sincerity, not sincerity is not the right word, but the gravitas of a lived in world. As long as the author is doing an okay job describing it, which I'm assuming C.S. Lewis did based on how loved this book is, those problems I would not have with the book. So it totally makes sense that you would choose the book over the movie. Because the movie is it's fine. It's just not that great.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
That's going to do it for the 10th episode of This Film is Lit.
Ninth. It's our 9th episode.
I want it to be the 10th. The Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol's the 10th episode. Speaking of which, you can go and vote on our Facebook page right now, not on Twitter. We lied about that before. Because Twitter only allows 4 options in a poll, and we have 5.
Yeah,
so.
I'm betrayed by Twitter. I was really upset.
Yeah. So, but on our Facebook page, we already have like almost 20 votes. A Muppet Christmas Carol is leading heftily.
Yes.
It currently
has twice the votes of any other option.
Which I had a feeling that was going to be the case because most people, that's the one they've seen. I'm the only one that's voted for my favorite, the Patrick Stewart one. So anybody out there who likes the Patrick Stewart Christmas Carol, feel free to go vote and make me make some fake Facebook accounts and vote some more. Anyways, you can check that out on our Facebook page. Just search This Film is Lit on Facebook. It's pinned to the top of the page, so you'll be very easy to find. Whichever one gets the most votes, we will be doing for our 10th episode, our second Christmas episode, which will be coming out in 2 weeks from today, if you're listening to this on Tuesday when it comes out. Before that, we will be, on our next episode, our prequel to the 10th episode, we will be discussing Coco. We're going to see Coco this coming Tuesday, so we'll have a little review of that.
We might be going to see The Shape of Water.
But I don't know if that'll be out yet. It might be. We will be seeing The Shape of Water at some point because big Guillermo del Toro fans, and it looks fantastic, but we're not exactly sure when it comes out. I think the 8th-ish, in that ballpark.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe. It's hard to... I still haven't been... We were looking the other day and couldn't find a concrete date of when it comes out everywhere. So once that comes out, we'll be reviewing that and talking about The Shape of Water. But until then, I think that's all. So go ahead and keep reading books, keep watching movies. Go ahead and go get lost in a wardrobe or something.
Until the next return of Aslan.
Yeah. We're still waiting on that, by the way. Still waiting.